There's only one way for the Oklahoma Sooners to clarify their future. Coming up next on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. I'm John Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. Not with me today is Jay. You can follow his work over at Unfair Sports on YouTube as well. And on today's show, we're going to discuss the Sydney Berzon edition in the transfer portal for Oklahoma softball and maybe where they should go next in the transfer portal. We're going to discuss the potential that John Mateer is with the Sooners for 2 seasons. We'll do that in the second segment, but we're going to start here, and that is with Oklahoma's future. ESPN came out with their future rankings for college football, and the Oklahoma Sooners came in at number 27. Maybe a little bit surprising, but they were inside the top 25 in ESPN's future power rankings before at number 16, and they've been in ESPN's top 25 power rankings, but the future is a little bit cloudy for the Sooners. And I think even the most optimistic Sooner fan, maybe right here, would even tell you that. The most optimistic observer might even tell you that so much of what depends on, or so much of what Oklahoma's future is, depends on what happens this season. I don't think anybody's living in a box, living outside of the understanding that this is a huge year for Brent Venables. Whether you're a national observer, whether you're a local observer, somebody that covers the team, somebody who's a fan, this is a big season. Brent Venables has had 2, 6, and 7 years in his 3 seasons in Norman. You can talk about all the extenuating circumstances. We've done it on this show. I'll continue to do it. Anytime somebody wants to talk to me about the 2024 season, I'm going to tell you about all the injuries because that was a part of the story of the 2024 season. Are they excuses? No. But it was a big reason as to why Oklahoma struggled so badly offensively in 2024. You want to go back to the 2022 defense or season? That defense was left without a whole lot of talent on it. After Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch left, after the 5 guys that went to the NFL led by Nick Bonito left, that was a big transition year for Oklahoma's defense. The offense was great. The defense couldn't stop anybody. Remember that Kansas State 3rd and 16? I do. Against Adrian Martinez. I was throwing pillows across my living room that night. So there were reasons why Oklahoma's had 2, 6, and 7 seasons. None of them great excuses. You got to be better. But how can Oklahoma clarify the future for not only the program, but for Brent Venables? And really, it comes down to this: simply win. Go win games. Go make the college football playoff. Go contend for the conference title. That will answer a lot of questions that a lot of people have. So far, Brent Venables is 0-3 in bowl games. You get to the college football playoff and you win a game, I think everybody's going to feel a little bit better about the direction of the program. You contend for the SEC title. You are in the mix to make the SEC championship game. And I think a lot of people will feel a lot better about where you're headed. Are all of the questions answered that everybody had after last season? No, they're not. A lot of what has to happen has to be proven on the football field. I can talk to you about how I think Oklahoma's offensive line is better. I can talk to you about how the quarterback situation is better, the wide receiver situation is better. But until they go prove it on the football field, it's just one man's opinion. Now, not just one man's opinion. A lot of people share the opinion that Oklahoma is going to be significantly better this year. But that doesn't necessarily change the reality that people have questions about the Oklahoma Sooners. And for good reason. The results haven't been there. You have a 10-3 season that you can look back on in 2023. And yet even that was unsatisfying because you had the losses to Kansas and Oklahoma State that kept you out of the Big 12 title game, that kept you from potentially making a run at the college football playoff. Those 2 disappointing losses kept you from achieving your goals. And then the bottom kind of fell out last year when everything went wrong for Oklahoma's offense. Now, a lot of things went right on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what you can hang your hat on in the 2024 season. And that's what you can hang your hat on moving forward, is that Brent Venables is going to field a really good defense. And yet it takes two sides of the ball. Really, it takes three phases to win a football game. You got to be good in all three phases. And Oklahoma hasn't consistently been good enough to win enough games. But with the additions of John Mateer, with the addition of Ben Arbuckle, that helps to give a little bit of a boost to Oklahoma's offense. But you've got to have a resurgent year from the offensive line. It can't be the rotational unit that we saw. It can't be the unit that spent a lot of time in the training room because it was just banged up all year. It can't be a unit that's relying on developmental guys at left tackle on the road, leading to getting sacked on 6 straight plays or something like that against Ole Miss, or giving up 9 sacks against South Carolina. It can't be that. Does it have to be a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line? No. For Oklahoma to be successful this year, they just have to be good, above average. Because what they were last year was not that. It was bad. It took half the season to find a run game. It took a lot of work to find any semblance of pass protection, and they still never really did it. But if you can find a run game to jumpstart the season right out of the gate, you go run the ball against Michigan, and man, people will feel great about where the offensive line is. You protect John Mateer, you keep him from getting that Michigan defensive line from getting to him, we'll feel great about where the offensive line is. That's going to be a huge litmus test for this team right away, right out of the gate. Yeah, you got Illinois State week 1. That's not going to tell you anything about this team, because we saw what this team did last year to the teams like Temple, the other really underwhelming teams on their schedule to start the year. You go and you play well against Michigan, that's going to tell us a lot about where this Oklahoma team is headed. But everything's on the table for them. Yes, it's going to take a 10-2, 11-1 season to make the college football playoff. It's probably going to take a 9-3 season for people to feel really good about where Brent Venables is at. Because as everybody has mentioned, Oklahoma's got one of the toughest schedules in college football. Not so sure. And so that's why I sit here and I think they've got to get to 10-2. They've got to be flirting with 11-3. And in whatever losses they do have on the season, they've got to be competitive in them. You can't have a South Carolina loss this year. You can't have a Texas blowout again. And in reality, you've got to go beat Texas. You can't drop to 1-3 against Sark. You can't drop to 1-3 and then get blown out in these games. I find it very unlikely that Oklahoma's not going to score a touchdown against Texas this year, even though that defense is going to be really good. I think John Mateer is going to be good enough to be able to put some points on the board. Now, will they score 34 like they had to beat Texas back in 2023? We'll see. Again, a really good Texas defense. But they've got to be able to go and win that game. And to me, they got to go win that game. I'm not going to settle for competitive in that game. They need to go win every game, to be honest. Like, there's nothing on this that I will feel completely satisfied, because I think every game is winnable for them on this schedule. Is it a tough schedule? Yeah, it is. But Oklahoma's a tough team on this schedule for everybody else as well. Do you have to go to Tuscaloosa? Yeah. Do you got to go to Knoxville? Yeah. You got to go to Columbia and play in Williams-Brice Stadium? Yeah. 11 a.m. kickoff in Williams-Brice, tough game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not a tough game. But you beat Alabama last year with a worse team. You were competitive against Ole Miss for a half with a worse team. You were competitive with LSU for the first half with a worse team. The South Carolina, you don't know what you were going to be in that game because you turned the ball over on the first 3 possessions. You were down 21-0 before you had a chance to even breathe. So to me, every game on this schedule for Oklahoma is winnable. Will they go undefeated? Man, who knows? Who knows? But they certainly are going to have a chance to go undefeated. Do things have to fall right for them? Yeah, they do. But if we're not sitting here having this expectation for Oklahoma to be one of the best teams in the SEC, then what are we even doing? We have to have high expectations for this program. That's what the program has created over the course of their 100+ years of success. 7 national titles, 50 conference titles, 7 Heisman winners. This is a team that shouldn't settle for anything less, and a program that shouldn't settle for anything less than perfection, than being one of the best teams in college football. So what's going to clarify Oklahoma's future? Go be one of the best teams in college football. Don't be a team that just gets by. Don't be a team that's just in contention for the college football playoff. Don't be a team that's losing close games. Go win those close games. Go assert yourself as Oklahoma. You've got the defensive line to do it. You've got the quarterback to do it. You've got the safety room to do it. You got the linebackers to do it. You got the running back to do it. Get your offensive line together. Get your wide receivers healthy. Javonte Gibson, Jaden Gibson, I see you. But why not Oklahoma? If it's not going to be Oklahoma. But anyway, that's how you clarify Oklahoma's future. Go win games. Could the Oklahoma Sooners get 2 years out of John Mateer? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Our friends over at Game Time have got you covered this NBA playoff season. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you want to experience live. And this year's NBA Finals is delivering. If you want in Game Time, makes it fast and easy to get seats. Even for the biggest playoff games, prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. Just went on the app looking for Oklahoma City, Indiana Pacers playoff tickets, and the zone deals. We're offering great deals in great sections. I love that I can see what my view is looking for before I buy. No surprises. And with the Game Time guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When John Mateer came to Oklahoma, many people and still are operating under this assumption that John Mateer is going to be a one and done with the Sooners, that he's going to come to Oklahoma, put together another really, really great year, and then he's going to go off to the NFL. I'm just not so sure that that's going to be the case. Let's start with some of the facts here. John Mateer signed a 2-year NIL agreement with the Oklahoma Sooners that could pay him up to $3 million over 2 years. That's not chump change. That's not anything to sneeze at. Like, it's not like he's, dependent on escalators and hitting certain milestones. Like, that is guaranteed for him if he's at Oklahoma for 2 years. I mean, it's nice work if you can get it, but you can get it if you try. Mamas, let your babies grow up to be quarterbacks. So that's the first part of this. The second part of this is you look at some of the 2026 NFL draft projections, and it's really early. Obviously, it's really early to be looking at some of this stuff, but it can give you a bit of an indication as to what at least the media draft analysts see in some of these players. Now, it's limited data because we don't have the 2026 or 2025 season, to go on. So that's going to change the dynamic for some of these quarterback evaluations. But let's take a guy like a Dylan Gabriel, for example. Coming out of the 2023 season, he was getting undrafted grades. Like, not many people were looking at him very highly, right? He was expected to go off to the NFL draft, didn't come back to Oklahoma, and ended up portaling to Oregon, had a great season, ended up getting drafted in the 3rd round. Now, Mateer's projections are a little bit better than where Dylan Gabriel was, and a lot of Dylan Gabriel's projections were due to height concerns. Shorter dude, 5'9", 5'10" in stature, and some arm strength limitations. But Cleveland drafted him in the 3rd round, maybe a little bit higher than what people were expecting. He was probably more of a mid-rounder, like a 4th, 5th guy. But this quarterback draft was just weird all the way around. Shadur dropping as far as he did, Quinn Ewers dropping as far as he did. It was just crazy all the way around. But Dylan Gabriel is kind of a bit of an example. So John Mateer maybe he's a little bit taller than Dylan Gabriel. He's coming in maybe 6'1", 6'2", but he's kind of thick like Dylan Gabriel, like a Baker Mayfield, like a Jalen Hurts, guy that is just muscle bound, just strong, thick. And he needs to be because he's going to take on contact when he runs. But you look at some of the projections that you're seeing out there for John Mateer, and in one place I saw he was the 9th quarterback, projected to be the 9th quarterback in the 2026 draft class. Again, assuming that some of those guys ahead of him, like an Arch Manning declares, and some others. I've seen 4th round projections for John Mateer. I've seen, anywhere from like a 5th or 6th round draft projection. Now, are these projections set in stone? Live them. They're the gospel of what's going to happen in the 2026 draft cycle? Not at all. Media analysts get it wrong all the time, just like recruiting analysts can get it wrong from time to time. But it had me wondering, okay, could John Mateer come back and play 2 years at Oklahoma? Even if he has a really good year in Norman with the Sooners this year, I think it's possible, man. I think anything's possible. You go look at Cam Ward. I mean, he spent 2 years under Ben Arbuckle at Washington State before going off to Miami, and then catapulted himself to the number 1 overall pick. You look at, again, a guy like Dylan Gabriel, who played out his eligibility and improved his draft stock. And I think John Mateer could be a similar dude. There's nothing that necessarily indicates that he's planning on being around for 2 years, except for that NIL deal that was reportedly $3 million over 2 years. But the relationship with Ben Arbuckle, what he's meant to Oklahoma so far, just as a leader in the program, someone who's really poured into the program, both on the field and then off the field as a recruiter, I think it speaks volumes to him. Now, he could just be doing that because he loves Oklahoma and he just wants to put his best foot forward and he wants to put the program in a good spot for when he leaves. But it could also mean that, hey, I'm going to be here. When you get here, I'll still be the quarterback here. So come play with us. Come play with me. Let's do this thing together. Let's get out there and let's go make some noise in 2026 when you arrive on campus. Or it could, again, just be a guy that is doing the good soldier and going out there and putting the team's best foot forward. Who knows? But I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that he could be a 2-year guy at Oklahoma. I hope he is. And that's not to say that I don't think Michael Hawkins Jr. couldn't be the guy in 2026. I absolutely think he could be the guy in 2026. But if you do get 2 years out of John Mateer, I think that helps your program even more because you're getting a guy with so much experience to lead your team for another year. And it gives Michael Hawkins another year of development to get ready for his time in 2027. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. Sitting isn't going to hurt Michael Hawkins Jr.'s development. Once he gets in the game, he's going to have a chance to be one of the nation's top game breakers at quarterback. His speed is crazy. Now, if he's the quarterback in 2026, I think he's going to have a chance to be a big time playmaker for Oklahoma, both as a passer and as a runner. But if it's not until 2027, because Mateer decides to come back, I think he's even better off because he just, again, another year in Ben Arbuckle's system, another year to sit and learn. And John Mateer showed what sitting behind quarterbacks and learning and just taking in the process and being patient, what that could do for you. So when it's your time to get on the field, you're ready to go out there and produce. I think sometimes we decide feel like we need to fast track these quarterbacks and we got to start them as true freshmen, or they got to be the starter by year 2. And that happened with Jackson Arnold. Now, a lot of the circumstances around Jackson Arnold weren't great last year, and they weren't great around Michael Hawkins last year. Michael Hawkins made the best of it. Jackson Arnold made the best of it. They had some big performances. Hawkins against Auburn, Jackson Arnold against Alabama, but the circumstances just weren't great. And it did not give them an opportunity to truly show what they're capable of. Were they at times maybe trying to do too much and that led to some turnovers? Yeah, it did. But I don't think we saw the ceiling potential for either of those quarterbacks. So if Michael Hawkins can, regroup, reset in 2025, and if he's the starter in 26 or in 27, he's going to be a much better player by the time he takes the field as a starting quarterback for Oklahoma than what he was in his true freshman season. When, again, he wasn't terrible. He helped you win the Auburn game. So there's a lot to be said for having John Mateer around for a second year in Norman. And I think it benefits everybody, not just Mateer, not just Oklahoma's win-loss total, but I think it benefits everybody in the quarterback room. It benefits the offense. It benefits Ben Arbuckle. It benefits Brent Venables to have quarterback continuity to where you're not going, Gabriel, Arnold Hawkins, Mateer, Hawkins, where you're having a new starting quarterback each year over the last 4 years. I think that benefits the program to have a little bit of continuity one year to the next. A lot of Oklahoma's, the lack of clarity around Oklahoma's future, some of it depends on what John Mateer decides to do after the 2025 season. But I think, and maybe again, me speaking optimistically, it might sound crazy to think that the guy's going to want to stick around for 2 years, but crazier things have happened. Coming up, we're going to discuss what Oklahoma's added in the transfer portal and Sydney Berzon, and where should they go next. Coming up here on Locked On Sooners. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Appreciate you all. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being with us here all off season long. We are so thankful that you decide to make Locked On Sooners your first listen every day, that you are in the comment sections on YouTube, that you're interacting with us on social media as well. Very much appreciate your support, your time, your energy, and your efforts to help us make this show great. And I speak for Jay when I want to say thank you again for making Locked On Sooners a part of your every single day. But let's take a look at the transfer portal, at what Oklahoma's done so far. Sydney Berzon, the pitcher from LSU, committed to the Sooners last week. Hadn't had a chance to talk about it yet, so wanted to make sure that we touch on this. A really, really strong addition for the Oklahoma Sooners. You look at Softball America's transfer portal rankings, and she comes in at number 1, and for good reason. I mean, she's an experienced pitcher. She's had some really good success at LSU, has some things that she has to continue to improve on, but with Jennifer Rocha, she can continue to do that. We've seen pitchers come to Oklahoma and raise their game, whether it was Alex Chirocco or Hope Troutwine or Sam Landry. Pitchers have done that on a number of occasions, come to Oklahoma and improved their stats as transfers. So Sydney Berzon back in 2025, she was 18-8 with a 2.46 ERA, 104 strikeouts and 139 innings and 44 walks. If there's an area where she can continue to get better, it's in that department right there. It's the walks. You don't want to be issuing that many walks. She was good in some games like in an elimination game against UConn. She threw a 3-0 shutout. Again, UConn, but she was good. She rose to the occasion. And then they didn't pitch her in their next elimination game, kind of, I think, trying to save her for the regional finals, but they didn't get that far and got bounced. So a good addition, like somebody that can lead your rotation and somebody that you can put out front in a group that includes Kirsten Deal, who's going to be back, very experienced, Peyton Monticelli, who's a good situational reliever. It's going to include Audrey Lowry, who, she had some, true freshman struggles in the first part of the season, dealt with some injuries in the middle part of the season, and then had that game against Texas where she got back in the circle for the first time in a long time and got beat up. I mean, she got beat up a lot, but then she responded. She bounced back. And over the final 5 outings of the season for Audrey Lowry, didn't allow a run in like 7 1/3 innings and allowed just 5 hits. So a really strong bounce back for Lowry after she allowed, I think it was like 5 or 6 runs in that game against Texas where Oklahoma led 8-0 in like the 3rd or 4th inning. Lowry came in, gave up a lot of those runs, and then Texas ultimately tied the game. But I think the ceiling is still high for Lowry, and the arrow is still pointing up. And she showed the resilience and the mental fortitude to be able to bounce back in that over the final 5 appearances of the season. But it wouldn't surprise me, and it probably would behoove Oklahoma to look at pitcher in the transfer portal. And I think there's a couple pitchers that Oklahoma could look at. I got 4 players that I think Oklahoma should take an interest in, or at least take a look at, and they might already be doing that. But 4 portal targets, if you're watching with us here on YouTube, I got the graphic up on the screen. But for those of you who aren't watching, my number 1 portal target, Addison Fisher, the pitcher from UCLA. She was a true freshman in 2024, and she had a 2.59 ERA. She was 16-2 with 100 strikeouts and 113 innings, gave up 41 walks, again, too many walks, and allowed a batting average of 0.241. A little bit too high. You want to have that closer to sub 2 for a pitcher that you're going to throw a lot of innings, but still not bad at all. She's a good pitcher. She's somebody that you can have. If you have a Sydney Berzon, you have Addison Fisher as your top 2 pitchers, you can go a long way. I think Oklahoma rode Sam Landry a little bit too hard, but a lot of it was because they didn't feel incredibly comfortable with any of their secondary pitchers to start games. They did start Kirsten Deal in one game, but then they went to Landry. I want to say like late in the game. I can't remember if that was the Oregon game. I think it might've been the Oregon game in the elimination game, but you have to ride 2 pitchers. Nyjah Kennedy showed us like everybody's a little bit human. Even the best pitchers in softball, they run out of steam at some point. And so got to find a second pitcher. Addison Fisher to me is the best one available. There's the best one available according to Softball America. But you also got to look at catcher, and I'll talk about the number 4 portal target here on the list here in a second. Maya Johnson, a pitcher out of Belmont, but let's talk about catcher for a second as well. I think that's high on a lot of people's portal priorities. Isabella Emmerling, she's a veteran and she has a lot of pop to her bat, but sometimes it seems like she's just taking the Merrill from Signs approach. If you've seen the movie Signs featuring Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix's character Merrill, the catchphrase is swing away, right? When they're battling the aliens in Sign, Mel Gibson looks to Joaquin Phoenix and says, swing away, Merrill, swing away. And earlier in the movie, he's in the Army recruitment office and runs into an old guy from high school. And they're talking about, having the home run record, but then the old friend from high school is like, he also had the strikeout record. And Merrill's like, it felt wrong not to swing. And I felt like that's where Isabella Emmerling was coming from at times during the season. Again, great pop, good power, but at times just trying to swing as hard as she could and not showing great plate discipline at times as well. So I think there's potential for Oklahoma to upgrade at catcher. We'll see if Patty Gasso, JT Gasso, Jennifer Rocha want to do that. It's hard to say. Now, they've got a really good catcher in Riley Zach on the roster. They're bringing in Kendall Wells, the top catcher in the 2025 recruiting class. And so you could go a couple different directions at catcher. Again, I want to show the 2 names. Grace Jenkins, she's the UConn catcher, and Brooke Wells, she was at Houston. But Grace Jenkins for UConn, she bat .424 with 21 home runs, 68 RBIs. She had an on-base percentage of .535 and a slugging percentage of .906. Like, that'll play. I get UConn wasn't playing the toughest softball schedule in the world. She'd be making a big jump into the SEC game, but you don't hit .424 on accident. You don't hit 21 home runs on accident. Like, I don't care what the level of competition is. That's pretty salty. Against Nebraska in the women's college, or in the NCAA tournament, I should say, she had 2 walks against, Jordy Ball and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And then against Sydney Berzon at LSU, she went 1 for 2 with a walk. Like, when the competition raised, she was right there with them. Now, didn't have the power numbers in the NCAA tournament performances, but still got on base. And that matters for a lot. You got to get on base to score runs. And if you can't get on base, you can't score runs. What was some of Oklahoma's problem? At times in the back half of the lineup, they struggled to get people on base for the front half of the lineup to be able to knock them in. A lot of what the front half of the lineup was relying on was Abigail Dayton getting on base and letting Cassidy Pickering and Ella Parker be able to knock her in. If you can get a Grace Jenkins, that's somebody that you can slide into your catcher spot, and you could maybe even hit her out of the 6 hole. Because as it stands right now, probably Ailana Agbayani is your 6 hitter, but I think she'd be even better suited as a number 7 hitter. Because if you're looking at your lineup and it's Cassidy Pickering, Ella Parker, Gabby Garcia, and then Nelly McEnroe Marinas, and then I'm batting Sydney Barker, number 5. Like, that's my first baseman. She's my number 5 hitter. at minimum. If she could be a cleanup hitter. Again, she went 3 for 3 against Nyjah Kennedy. She's got pop. She's got the RBI potential. I think she'd be a great 3, 4, or 5 hitter. Someone that you can play at first base every single day, and you're going to get great production out of Sydney Barker. But then if you have a Grace Jenkins that comes in as your number 6 hitter, and you push Ilana Agbayani to your 7, and then maybe a Tia Molloy at 8, or a Kai Minor that's coming in the 2025 class, the number 1 player in the 2025 recruiting class, in the 8 hole, and then you got Abigail Dayton in the 9 hole. That lineup's looking really, really good. Again, Oklahoma's number 2 in offense, in scoring offense in 2025. They were really good. Was it perfect? No. Did they not have enough situational hitting? Yes. Did they struggle with runners on base during the NCAA tournament, Women's College World Series? Yes. But Grace Jenkins gives you an opportunity to add another big bat to your lineup. Another one that I find is kind of intriguing, and this might fly under the radar for a lot of people, and this is Brooke Wells out of Houston. She played her true freshman season for the Cougars this year, hit 341, 10 home runs, 47 RBIs. She had a 645 slugging percentage and a 478 on base percentage with 35 walks. Now, Houston was terrible. They finished last in the Big 12. And again, this is a Big 12 with no Oklahoma, no Texas. And still Houston was not good. But she led Houston in pretty much everything. Batting, home runs, RBIs, slugging, on base, walks, everything. So that's a potential player that you could put into your lineup. And again, you might be able to get more out of her batting in an Oklahoma lineup where there are a lot more threats, and she's going to see a lot better pitches in her at bats because people got to worry about everybody around her. Get with JT Gasso, get in Oklahoma's strength and conditioning, get in their training programs, get in the film room, and potentially you can get more out of Brooke Wells. Now, she'd be a true freshman, and Patty Gasso's talked about how she doesn't necessarily want to recruit over the prospects that she's brought in or is bringing in, and totally get that. You want to allow those players to come in and compete for opportunities. So Oklahoma might not pursue catcher at all. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they decided not to pursue catcher or pitcher, to be honest. Because if you look at catcher, yeah, Isabella Emmerling, she's got to improve at the plate. Has to improve behind the plate. There were too many, balls that she dropped or runners that she wasn't able to throw down. Got to improve in every facet. But you're bringing in Kendall Wells, the number 1 catcher in the 2025 class. You've got Riley Zatch at catcher as well. Somebody who showed that she's got some potential as well. So you've got some interesting options, but if you want a plug and play catcher right now that you feel like is ready to go and ready to make the leap, Grace Jenkins, Brooke Wells gives you a good potential opportunity. And that brings us back to pitcher. You've got Sydney Berzon, and you've got a couple veterans in Deal and Monticelli. You've got a young pitcher with a lot of potential in Audrey Lowry. You got Sophia Bordy, who at this moment, there's no inclination that she won't be back. We'll have to wait and see. But until her or her family say that she won't be back, I'm fully anticipating Sophia Bordy back in the Oklahoma, circle, competing for innings and looking to make an impact. Remember, she reclassified to join the team last year. So she was very young, and whatever it was that she had to deal with, sometimes you're just not ready for college life. I remember that first time that all those tests came up, like 4 or 5 weeks into the semester, and I am struggling. I got 4 tests and a couple papers, and I'm like, what do I do? And just really struggling, overwhelmed, stressed to the max, not sure what to do first, and really not really, I'm basically kind of having a breakdown. And I remember my dad talking to me and saying, hey, what do you got to do first? What's the first thing you got to do? And I was a 17-year-old going on 18. I was a young college freshman. So I totally get it. Sometimes there are things that happen in college and mentally it kind of drains you and it hits your system. And so you got to take a moment to regroup and recalibrate and get back in the saddle. So I'm hopeful that Sophia Bordy is able to come back to Norman and be a part of this thing just for her, showing that resilience, that mental fortitude to get back on the horse and get back in the game. But so you've got a lot of potential, and then you're bringing in Alyssa Parker, the number 1 overall pitcher in the country in 2025. So you've got a lot of really, really young potential on this roster for 2025, 2026. But if you're not sure that you want to rely on that young potential in 2026, I can totally understand Patty Gasso and Jennifer Rocha going after Addison Fisher or this next pitcher I want to talk about real briefly before we get out of here. And that's Maya Johnson. Maya Johnson for Belmont. She went 24-6 with a 1.52 ERA with 366 strikeouts in 207 innings. 366 strikeouts in 207 innings. She had 24 games with 10 plus strikeouts. She had 5 games with 15 or more strikeouts. And then she had games of 17, 17, and 18 strikeouts on the season. Just absolutely nuts, by the way. Against Arizona State, she went 8 innings, gave up 2 hits, 1 earned run, and struck out 12 in the win, in a 5-1 win. Absolutely big time game. Now, in the NCAA tournament, when Maya Johnson was forced to pitch against Virginia Tech, didn't fare as well. She gave up 5 earned runs in 2 different outings against the Hokies in Belmont's elimination. So, she's a junior, a redshirt junior. So somebody that pitched a little bit, has some experience, obviously has some impressive production at lower level of college softball, the mid-major level. But I mean, that's a lot of potential that you're looking at. Again, she threw 207 innings, just 22 walks in 207 innings. So you see, like, she's pounding the strike zone. She is not afraid to pound the strike zone. And against good hitting teams like Virginia Tech is, you're going to get beat. You're going to get hit sometimes. Get her with Jennifer Rocha, help her hone in some of those things, and potentially she can be even better than what she was this last year for Belmont. So those are 4 options in the transfer portal that I think Oklahoma should take a look at pitcher, at catcher. But again, Patty Gasso's the GOAT. I'm not going to sit here and question her or tell her anything on what she should do. But if this was me, this is just my opinion. These are 4 players that I think are really intriguing that Oklahoma could look to make an addition for. But if they don't, totally understandable. They've got a lot of young talent on this team that you may want to give an opportunity to. But that's going to do it for today's little bit prolonged edition of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. Make sure you follow Jay at Unfair Sports and check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. But until next time, for my buddy Jay, I'm John Williams. Talk to you then. Boomer Sooner. And also Thunder Up. I know maybe didn't go so well. Anyway, Boomer Sooner. Have a great night. Great day.